Welcome to this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have with us Kevin Robinson, a real estate operator, also an author, and we'll learn from him about his journey that began with moving 18 times as a kid and that led to a multi-million dollar real estate portfolio. We learn from him the daily disciplines that separate those who escape poverty from those that stay stuck. What new investors are doing wrong and what financial freedom really looks like beyond the hype. Welcome to the show, Kevin.
I am so excited to be here. Thank you for having me on your platform. I look forward to sharing with your audience.
You are welcome. Welcome to the show, Kevin. Welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll talk about real estate, we'll talk about resilience, we'll talk about wealth building, and much more with you. So we'll talk about all this. But before that, let's talk a bit about your journey, your background, so that the audience knows who they are listening to.
Perfect. So I grew up in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, in the United States. My mother raised 7 children on welfare, government support. We moved around from place to place at least 18 times before I turned 18. So I actually learned what instability was, actually with living without a margin of safety, and also a sense of like not belonging because we kept moving. So I actually was a knucklehead running around doing all these bad things in middle school, smoking, drinking, and felt as though I wasn't loved. And then one day, while we were living in a studio apartment, I'm talking about we had a hot plate, we didn't have a stove, we had a bathroom sheet, we didn't have a bathroom door, we had a tub, but we didn't have a shower. We had 15 people and rats and roaches living on top of each other in one bed. And my stepdad at the time looked at me, he said, KR, look, you do not want to be an F up like me and some of the rest of your family members, because I had siblings that were teens and they were pregnant with children already. And he said, look how we live. You want to live like this? He said, do as I say, not as I do, because he said, look, I'm not doing it, but I know what it takes. And so at that moment, I decided that I'm going to take the perfect from the imperfect person. So I started to shift my life and turn my life around. Then I was able to go off and be from D's and C's to graduate valedictorian, go and work on Wall Street for Goldman Sachs, doing investment banking. And then I built a real estate empire where I have over 160 rental units now. And so it all started from that conversation.
Absolutely. All started from that conversation, Kevin. So I was just thinking about the time when your dad told you about that particular moment that don't do what I do way I do as the way I talk. How
Yes.
not everyone has that sense to understand what immense wisdom is being told to them in their everyday life. Were you that? How did you understand that this is something which you got to latch onto and build a life that actually matter to yourself, your family, and everyone else? How did you get it? Where did you get that wisdom from? Because it is not easy. You can be near a very big near a lot of gold, pots of gold, but not everybody would understand the value of it because the gold will in a different shape and size.
I think that's a good point, because he told that same story or made that same point to all of my siblings. But the thing is that they struggled to understand that he was just a messenger. Because he wasn't successful, a lot of my family members didn't believe him, because they said, look, you're not even succeeding, so why should we believe you? And I think because I could see the pain in his eyes and the hopelessness in his eyes that just told me, look, just take a chance. You're only like 13 or 14 at the time. This is a time where maybe you can get out of this situation, because living like that was not the life that I wanted. And so I said, I had to have an internal mindset shift where I came to the decision that I need to focus, but also to the reality that nobody was coming to save me. Nobody was coming to rescue me. And so I started to shift my mindset and change my environment. I knew that my community loved me, but I knew that I couldn't get from my parents and my siblings some of the things that I needed. So therefore, I started building my own personal board of directors. I also started creating nurturing environments that can actually pour into me and help me develop my skill set. So that's what actually happened at that young age. I said, I'm going to take a risk and just see what will happen if I bet on myself and try to separate myself from this abject poverty.
Absolutely. Any particular moment beyond that moment that you can think of that, okay, you have now moved away from that survival mindset, poverty mindset to something that you would be able to build long lasting, something that would take out of that life to the life that your dad was actually chalking, even better than that?
I actually think what was happening is that I made a lot of small decisions that had compound effects. So what happened is, once I started from being a B, C, D student and graduating valedictorian, I start seeing evidence that I can change my life. And so by getting that evidence, it helped me build that confidence that, look, you can really get out of here. You can see the world. So I went from this survival to structure. I start putting structure in my life, and from structure to stability, and stability, not just financially, but emotionally and socially. So what started to happen is, I noticed that once I came up with routines and systems and processes and people who I can rely on to teach me about things, that's when things started to click. So I started to build out a team of mentors, sponsors, teachers, professors, people who would help me figure out the next step, because I was not alone. So I had to learn that I wasn't alone. And then I had to also learn that it was okay to be vulnerable. What I mean by vulnerable is, you're willing to ask for help when you don't understand something, or when things are too heavy to carry on your own.
Absolutely, absolutely. So that brings me to the message that you are sharing with the world. What is it that you are saying to the world with what you are saying and sharing, and with your own story?
I think with my book, what I focus on, the book Can't Break Me, is I want to show people a story. I want to tell people a story that my past does not define who I am. So pretty much my past, it just shows how I was shaped, but it doesn't define my future. And so what happened is, throughout my life, I've always had to overcome a challenge. Whether I was going off the boat in college when I was 18, and my brother 1 year younger was going off to prison for attempted murder for 12 to 20 years. So every time when I was getting ready to turn to do something very positive, something in my life was very critical that happened. So my second year of business school, I was at Dartmouth, one of the Ivy Leagues, and I lost my father, my biological dad, in the spring, and my mother, my biological mother, in December, that Christmas, the same year. So I'm getting ready to do something really promising and about to go out there and achieve. And recently, this past December, I lost my sister to an overdose while I'm out on this book tour, what have you. So what I mentioned that is because I don't want to make it seem like pain doesn't exist. It's how you respond to the pain. What do you do with it? So I wrote my book, Can't Break Me, as a promise, not as a promise to myself, but also to whoever has been through loss, or whoever have felt stuck, that, look, your circumstances actually may explain your past, but they do not get to define your future. And so that's what the message that I'm trying to get out to the world.
Absolutely, absolutely, Kevin. So, someone who is at whatever stage of their journey, when they listen to your story, either from a podcast like this or anywhere else, or also from your book, if they ask you, and because it's a live show we are talking right now, and in any other place they will have to write to you, but if they ask you that, Kevin, I want to achieve the same sort of success, perhaps better than yours, how would you suggest them to get started from where they are at this particular point in time?
So what I think is really, really important is I stress that you have to do the 3 Ds and the 3 Cs. So the first thing is desire. You have to have a burning desire to want to create a better life for yourself and your loved ones, some burning desire that's inside of you. The next thing I would say is that you have to have discipline. Discipline to stick to your routines and practices on a regular basis, day in and day out. And the reason why I say discipline and not motivation is because motivation fades. It comes in and out. But discipline, you stick to it regardless of how you feel. And the third D is determination, because you can stick to a routine, but sometimes you actually may not achieve your goal or your objective, and sometimes you may want to give up. But I don't want you to give up. I want you to be determined to keep pushing through. So that's why I said start with the 3 Ds, which is desire, discipline, and determination. And then I want you to focus on the 3 Cs, which is one, intellectual capital. So get educated, whether in school or outside of school, through books, through conversations. You want to get that intellectual capital. The next thing you want to do is build that social capital. So you're building relationships with various people so you can affect change in your life and others. And the third capital is financial capital. You have to learn how to access capital, build capital, grow capital, manage capital. So if you do the 3 Ds and the 3 Cs, you can change your life. That's the mindset and the framework you need. But if you're particularly interested in real estate, what you have to do is, if you do what's necessary, then do what's possible, you will find yourself doing the impossible. And what I mean by that is that you want to understand the fundamentals. You want to build a track record. You want to have those relationships so that therefore, if you do 1R and R2, track record relationship, your reputation is going to precede you. So therefore, I want you to really understand your domain. The riches are in the niches. So therefore, zero in and say, this is going to be my focus. I'm going to do real estate. I'm going to learn it in and out. I'm going to read books about it. I'm going to become obsessed about it. This is what I am going to be known for. And you're going to start to understand different pillars of this business. And so that's what I would tell somebody to do. So when I started in real estate, I had one rental unit in 2009. 2018, I had 9. 2019, I had 35. 2020, I had 105. So during the pandemic, I bought 70 rental units, and now I'm at 160 plus. It's because I did exactly what I said. If you do what's necessary, then you do what's possible. You will eventually find yourself doing the impossible. So I encourage people to surpass what I've done. Take from my story, a story which is about discipline and application, and being able to read the room and build out systems and teams to affect change and achieve your goals.
Absolutely. How about getting into real estate investing? Means you must be have applied some thought to that. Did you go to real estate, or did real estate come to you? How did that happen? So that people
So,
can also understand what is the right sort of venue for them.
so I think that what's interesting is that real estate came to me. So even though my family was extremely poor in Philadelphia, and my stepdad and I would go on walks, and we would work on people's houses. So he was a really good tradesman. He knew how to do a lot of stuff: plumbing, electricity, fix a lot of things. And so he would bring us along for work, and he will always talk about how the neighborhood's going to change. It's next to university, and investors are going to invest in this neighborhood. Even though he didn't own anything and he was broke as hell, he was still a visionary. So he planted the seed of real estate in me at a very young age. And what I did is I ran with that. I said, let me see, maybe this real estate thing can work. And so I started to bet on myself, and I bought one piece of real estate, and I mastered that one piece of real estate. I didn't jump around and do 15 different pieces of real estate the first year. It was kind of like I was a security guard, and I would focus on that one computer screen versus focus on 15 computer screens where thieves can get by me, I said, I'm gonna focus on one thing. And so I focused on buying one property on average every year. So therefore I could build relationships with the lenders, with the contractors. I can go to Home Depot, go to the stores and learn about the business day by day while keeping my 9 to 5. So my 9 to 5 was able to take care of my daily bills, and I was able to save my money from my real estate business while I was learning. So I would say someone that's interested in doing what I did is first figure out what are the local laws and regulations around tenants and landlords, and also buying property, and if you can do financing, and understand basic accounting. Take an accounting course. Also take a basic acting course so you learn how to sell yourself in front of others. And I think then you will be able to establish a track record. So start small and grow over time. And what I love a lot about my process is that it really stressed long-term patience and delayed gratification.
Absolutely, absolutely, Kevin. Patience as well as delayed gratification. But with the life that you had, looking at the big family, limited resources at that point in time, the first, instance whenever somebody has money like that, you know, then you want to splurge that money, enjoy that money, and then think of later on. Was it also the same response, or was it always long term wealth building in your mind? What was your mindset with whatever little money that started coming into your hands from real estate or also from the work?
So for me, it was always long-term mindset. So since I was like 13, I had say, hey, I want to retire when I'm 45. So I did everything in my power to put forth a concerted effort to get out of the workforce. So I was purpose driven, not position driven when I worked on Wall Street. I had a distinct purpose that, hey, look, I want to become my own boss. I do not want to report to anyone. So I was able to leave Wall Street at 37 when I reached 105 rental units and make over 6 figures every month. But I had that long-term mentality that I was saying, look, I'm going to live off my 9 to 5 job. And what I'm going to do is save all my money from the real estate business and pay down the debt on the real estate so I can build up the equity. And I also will build that experience and increase my net worth. So therefore I can do what I want in the future. And so for me, I think that if you do what's necessary now, you do what you have to do, therefore you can do what you want. And so my mentality was never, oh, can I go buy a car? It was, can I get to the point where I could put my name on one of my buildings? And my name was on a few of my apartment buildings. And so I always had this mindset that, look, I'm not focused on today because I know that the future can be greater, that I know that I can have a larger impact. But yes, I do take the opportunity to spend time with family and take vacations and things of that nature, but I do not like to splurge. That's just not in my nature. I'm not that type of person.
Absolutely. So you talk about patience, and today's time you see a lot of people want faster way of getting things done. That's the nature of life that we have today, especially so much of technology in our hands. Now people have even don't want to stress on this mind also. They have got artificial intelligence and everything. Amidst all these things, how would you explain them that wealth building requires patience, that it does not require instant gratification? You talk about the boring daily disciplines that can help you in this. Help us understand about these things for people who may want to learn about the right way of doing things from you.
And so I think I'm glad that you brought that up because we do see a lot of stuff on social media and out in the public saying, oh, I want things immediately. Success likes speed. Success does not like speed. What I've learned is that you have to take your time. Things done well are done soon enough. And I'm going to say that again. Things done well are done soon enough. So what I learned is that if I can master how to buy a single family property, how to buy it, how to rehab it, how to manage the tenants, how to manage the renovations, to manage the team, then in the long run, I'm going to become an expert in that field. And then I was able to elevate to buy an apartment building. So I will buy something with, let's say, a triplex, three apartment, four apartment. Then I could buy a 10 apartment building, a 12 apartment building, a 20 apartment building. And what I was able to do is master that every step of the way. So therefore, you learn how to plan for the worst and hope for the best. And so what I did is I said, let me take myself out of this equation and just look at it from a business perspective. And when you start to do that, you say, let me look at it analytically. How can I put systems in place so I can walk away and have the business work? And so you have to first understand every part of the business if you're going to be the CEO. Therefore, you can empower other people to take on the torch when you're ready to pass it. And so, therefore, I would tell people, look, figure out what you're really interested in, and then I want you to become obsessed with it. Therefore, you're going to become very, very dangerous and a very, very skillful person in that particular domain. And you see that in everything. People who are, if they specialize in technology, or they become a doctor, they become a surgeon, or they become a owner of a construction business, or owner of a cleaners, or owner of a restaurant. They become obsessed with their niche because the riches are in the niches. And so I really encourage people to say, it's going to take time. I need to put thousands of hours into this in order to become really good at it.
Absolutely. Amidst all the things that you can learn from outside, one is the individual way of understanding the world and doing things. In that aspect, how did you evaluate what your biggest superpower was and put that into work? Because that is, I guess, something, that stays for a long time and actually becomes the driving force. What was it for yours, in terms of yours?
I'm glad you asked that. So for me, when I was in college, I decided to join a bunch of different clubs. So therefore, I can meet people from diverse backgrounds. I also decided to do a different type of internship on Wall Street. So my freshman year, I worked at American Express. I did advisory work, financial advisory work in the DC area. Then my sophomore year, I did sales and trading at Potential Securities in the Precious Metals Group. And then I did investment banking in a technology group at Credit Suisse in New York. And then I took a job at Goldman Sachs and the consumer retail investment banking group and got exposure to mergers and acquisitions and financing deals and things of that nature, industry work. And then I worked at a hedge fund and I covered US home builders, UK home builders, and US and European financials. And I walk you through all that to let you know that my way of learning what I did really well or what I really enjoyed was process of elimination. By seeing different things, I was able to eliminate the things that I did not enjoy. And I really noticed that I really had gravitated towards real estate and I really enjoyed it. And I enjoyed like dealing with the banks. And I remember as a young lad with my stepdad and walking through the streets and stuff and saying, real estate's not that bad. So I think sometimes what we do is we have to explore, and that's how you're going to figure out what your superpower is or what you really enjoy doing by taking various classes, joining various organizations, and interning for various companies. Then you're going to figure out exactly what you really, really enjoy doing or what you do naturally, what's innate. And so I realized that I was interested in being a leader and also the real estate space or what have you.
Absolutely. Some people will say real estate can be challenging because it's all, a lot of regulations are there, government policies are there, politics is also there. So anything can change at any point in time. And normally people think, when you have sectors like this, it is better to have de-risk yourself by doing other things or also having other avenues of income. Every sector has challenges. Even in this sector, you had challenges. How did you look at that? Did you look at the challenges as something that will fine tune your journey into real estate itself, or did you look at challenges as something much more fearful in nature, that I should de-risk myself, I should look at plan B, plan C? How should one look at these situations whether they should look at it, purely from de-risking perspective, or also looking at it purely also that these challenges will come and go, but I should look at de-risking, but that should not dilute my focus on what I am doing.
So I'm glad you mentioned that. I think it's so important that we figure out our lane. So I love real estate. I do real estate all the time. And so I become really confident in my skill set and my ability. So therefore, I'm not going to let the naysayers convince me that I should do something else, because I put in the hours, I've built the relationships, I've built the skill set, and I've also gained the knowledge that makes me really successful. Like in real estate, you only need 2 out of 3 things to be successful. One is you're going to need money. 2, you need knowledge. And 3, you're going to need relationships. So therefore, if you have 2 out of 3, maybe you have the relationships and maybe you have the money, then you'll be able to get the real estate. Or maybe you have the money and you have the knowledge and you can get the real estate. So it's so important that you understand that you diversify too. So you're going to plan for the worst, hope for the best. So therefore, we're going to make sure we have diversification in terms of the type of properties. You may have diversification in terms of the type of tenants. So therefore, you're not caught flat-footed. You also want to make sure that you have cash reserves just in case. You want to make sure that you have insurance. So you're going to think about all those different scenarios. But I also own some stocks. So you may actually decide to own stock. And I also do some consulting work from time to time. And so you're thinking about various ways to set yourself up so that the odds are not stacked against you. You're actually stacking the odds in your favor. And I think that's where we get lost, is we start to think about the glass being half full, half empty, versus saying half full. When you know it's half full, then you know you can get it to the top. And so a lot of people just have to change the way they look at the world and how they look at themselves, so that they don't become discouraged and set themselves up on the back end to be successful by doing what's necessary today.
Absolutely, absolutely. And talking about your book, who is your book for? You are the author of Can't Break Me.
So my book, when I wrote this book, I said, look, I want to write a book that is going to be a blueprint. I want this blueprint, and I wanted to lay out not a success story, but lay out what you can achieve with a disciplined life, where you day in and day out lay out the life that you want by being disciplined, and understand that you are not alone, that you are community made. All of us are built off of our community, especially me. People pour into me, people teach me, people open doors for me. That's why I'm successful. So I wanted to lay out what can happen when you become disciplined, when you're willing to be vulnerable to ask for help, when you're willing to build communities that will help you get to the next level. Whether that's your personal board of directors, which is like your team of advisors and mentors, people that support you and sponsor you. It's so important. So I wanted to give people a blueprint. So that's who I wrote this book for people who feel as though they're stuck, for people who feel as though they don't know what to do next, for people who feel as though that the odds are always against them. I wanted to show you that despite what you're going through, you are not alone. People love you. People know that you exist. And this is your time to take the world on to the next level. And so that's pretty much my entire platform. KR Motivates, KAY Motivates, on all social media and my website, is that we're teaching people that you can take your life to the next level. Once you realize that nobody's coming to save you, and this is your opportunity to change the life you live.
Absolutely. So a lot of people, I'm sure, would want to connect with you. What's the best way for them to do so?
The best way to reach me is KAYR Motivates, and that is on social media, TikTok, IG, which is Instagram, YouTube, KAYR Motivates. That is also my website, www.KAYRmotivates. And everybody should tune in, because I go live as well, teaching people about real estate, but also about motivation, also about discipline, also about resilience. I go into all those different themes and ideas.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you for having me.